Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Will Taylor. We warmly welcome the family of Private Arthur Ambrose Mossom and Sergeant George Banks Mossom, whose story will be told shortly. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind two of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to brothers Sergeant George Banks Mossom and Private Arthur Ambrose Mossom. George Mossom was born in 1890 in Ballarat, Victoria, the son of Frank and Emma Mossom. His brother Arthur was born in 1892. The boys were born somewhere in the middle of Frank and Emma's large family, which moved to Queensland when George and Arthur were young. Frank Mossom worked as a boilermaker, first at the Phoenix Foundry and later for the railway workshops. He was a member of the Independent Order of Rechabites, a temperance organisation which George would later join. The family belonged to the Brisbane Street Congregational Church, and a number of George and Arthur's brothers would retain close ties to the church. George and Arthur were educated at the Boys Central State School in Ipswich. George then undertook a 5-year apprenticeship with Shillington and Sons in Ipswich to become an engine fitter. Arthur went on to work on the Roma Downs cattle station as a station hand. Arthur and his older brother George enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in June 1915. The pair were posted to reinforcements to the 9th Battalion and left Australia for active service in September 1915 on board the troop ship Ayrshire. They were first sent to Egypt, where evacuated troops from Gallipoli continued training in the desert for the first few months of 1916. From Egypt, the brothers were sent to France to fight on the Western Front. The 9th Battalion fought its first battle in France on the 23rd of July 1916, when they fought to capture the French village of Poitiers. Although the operation was a success, the 9th Battalion met considerable resistance and struggled to advance. Some days later, after finally advancing into the village, the battalion was relieved. By this time, both the Mossoms were part of the 9th Battalion's machine gun section. A friend of theirs from Ipswich wrote to friends in Queensland, noting that both the Mossoms wish me to tell you they are still going strong. On the 20th of August, the 9th Battalion entered the front line near Poitiers for a second time. The battlefield was so torn up they could only relieve the 4th Battalion during daylight hours, proceeding out into the open in several places because communication trenches had been blown flat. Throughout the day, the battalion suffered the odd casualty, usually a result of artillery fire. On the 20th of August 1916, Sergeant George Mossom was killed in action. Although the exact manner of his death is unrecorded, it was almost certain the result of artillery fire the battalion encountered on the destroyed battlefield. Private Arthur Mossom remained with the 9th Battalion as it rotated in and out of the front line during the bitterly cold winter of 1916 and 1917. Early the following year, the battalion was on the front line near the French town of Brazeton-la-Petite. The Germans had retreated to the Hindenburg Line and the Australians were following their retreat. On the 26th of February, 2 patrols advanced, trying to establish the location of the Germans and also to build advanced strong points in no man's land. The 9th Battalion suffered more than 75 casualties during the advance following the enemy's retreat. Amongst those casualties were Private Arthur Mossom. Like his brother, the manner of his death has not been recorded, but in his case, it is most likely at the hands of active snipers and machine gunners trying to stop the patrols of the 9th Battalion as they advanced into no man's land. Neither of the brothers' bodies were recovered from the battlefield, and to this day, they have no known grave. Instead, the brothers are listed one after the other on the Australian National Memorial at Villers-Bretonneux. Arthur was 24 years old, his brother George, 26. Their names are listed on the honour roll to my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. But this is one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant George Banks Mossom and his brother, Private Arthur Ambrose Mossom, who gave their lives for us, for our freedom, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.